They were to build a radio station in the heart of the Andes Mountains, to reach Ecuador, and eventually to broadcast to the whole world. These are the pioneers, the vision builders, Reuben and Grace Larson, Paul and Bernice Young, Clarence and Catherine Jones, J.D. and Ruth Clark, Stuart and Irma Clark. They laid the foundation and brought the vision to reality.
We were wondering whether our 250-watt transmitter would reach out and whether anybody would ever receive us beside the 6 receivers that were there. And whether our weak signal, we call it the voice of the Andes, it might have been called the whisper of the Andes, because we only had just that much little power to reach out to those 6 receivers. And that called for the patience of God in our heart, because we were used to working with several stations in Chicago that were big and great and glorious and going places and reaching with a group of 5,000 people and in the studio and all the rest of it. And we wondered whether it was an urgent something in our heart that flew up and then was gone, or whether God was calling us. 250 watts instead of the 5,000 watts that we wanted to begin with. And whether God had called us to this radio desert. There wasn't any radio in the country at all. There wasn't any receivers beside the 6 that we found. And it was something that we had to find out by God's working. Now, from August until December 25th, the first day of our broadcast, 1931, and to get 250 watts on the air, that was really something. It was just one little panel there, and 250 watts. Why, any one of you fellas could get it done in 5 minutes or an hour at the most, but it took us months and months and months before we could get the thing on the air. And then finally the blue tube, a power tube, well, it blew out, and that meant that the whole thing was done just the day before we would start on Christmas Day. And was there anybody in the world who could help us? You couldn't line up help in the States, but we said there's a man down in Riobamba. He didn't broadcast, but he was an amateur. And he said he has a station there, and we'll find out. So we got in the car and went down, and he did. He gave us the blue tube, and we brought it back. And by that, we were on the air on Christmas Day of 1931. I remember a clerk, before we started out in New York, we had 27 boxes. And he said, what does this World Radio Missionary Fellowship with a 250-watt transmitter going to mean? How are they going to reach the world? Well, I don't know, but that's the thing that God gave us.